And whenever we want to do something, you better not say nothing because I'll take that from you. Whatever, whatever it is that they may be offering or giving.
Correct. I'm supposed to move. I hate to ruin the conversation, but now I'm supposed to move you to the next room.
Okay.
So thank you guys so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Super helpful.
yeah, this was a
And
really.
please
good
continue the
conversation.
discussions in the other room too, because they will want to continue here.
Yeah, they'll ask you a different question. It's also broad and open-ended, so you might cover the same
For
issues
sure.
again, but.
I think if you want to take, because it's
Just
your
take your
notes,
notes.
right? Yeah, I'm taking notes.
I could leave that here.
If you don't mind, actually, I'd love it. Yeah. Thank you. Unless you want it. Thank you, guys.
Well.
So I'll take you, you're going to see. Right down there.
Thanks for joining the red team. We won you over, you know? We made you sit with us. Thanks, Raymond.
Thanks.
Coach Raymond.
Ready for your second group?
Please, thank you.
All right. Yeah, team, we're in here. Thank you again.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for
Hi,
coming.
hi. Please join us.
We're gonna need more
I know where
chairs.
the chairs are, so please have
Joe,
a seat.
oh, yeah. We might be the largest.
This one and then. Oh, yeah, this is where my fitness comes in today. Don't worry, I don't want you. You don't.
Brought my standing up. Oh, I got 5 bags. Trash bags. Each bag got 20 bags.
Okay.
And you know, I had to park in the garage, so.
Just sorry.
Which one we bring them to the cafe?
Oh, you want to scoot? Yeah. Oh, we can bring them. Well, you think I can get some? I'm gonna have to leave early.
Me too.
We're gonna scoot over a little more this way, so.
A little more that way?
Yeah.
Scoot your chair. I do too, cause I have to speak on the webinar at 7, so I can't be on the road. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to. I'm gonna probably around 2 o'clock. That's what I'm gonna. Okay. Okay. Alright, so we leave, so how you getting back?
I gotta take a Uber because I'm going.
Where you going? Oh, you want to the airport, you got your luggage with you?
I got a luggage with me.
Well, I can bring you to the cafe.
Please, good, I know we're there.
Okay. Well, by the time you get there, you could just leave it at the cafe, just
Leave the bag.
Thanks for joining. Well, don't worry, we need this back.
Oh.
And we'll do very quick intros, but just that haven't formally started yet, but I'm Rima. It's really nice to meet you all. Thank you, and thanks to Joe for an amazing day yesterday. Thank you. I'm excited for everyone's we have to wait a little bit, so we do it formally on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
For the world to record and hey.
Oh, that's where you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're a big group.
Yeah.
Liz, we did it.
Did you do introductions already?
No, I thought we have to wait for the Zoom.
The Zoom is going.
Okay, so can you just start, you think? We're okay to start, Liz?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. We will do very quick introductions. Maybe if you don't mind, we'll start
Yeah.
with you, Jeff.
Jeffrey Supat with Waterwise Gulf Sound.
Thank you.
Melissa Gonzalez with 2 Line. Jamel Levine, Rise St. James, Louisiana. Rashetta Ovan, Vessel Project of Louisiana, and Go Fossil Finance Hub.
Y'all know me, so. Oh, but Joe Banner, Descendants Project.
Daisy LaGrue, Housing NOLA.
Jackie Bayham, New Orleans East Green Infrastructure Collective, and a partner of Waterwise Gulf South.
Thank you.
Liz Boyle, National Academies.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I'll just say, I'm sorry, I'll be typing as we go because we have this amazing lady here who's going to be doing 5 jobs at the same time. So, we'll be chatting. I'll try to take down notes. If you feel inspired to write down any keywords from your kind of viewpoint or others say, please do so on this thing here. We have also, like, you could use Post-its, you could use pads, whatever you want. And I'll try to take some notes here. So the question for us that we'd love to sort of go around the table hearing from all of you on, and we have 20 minutes, is what are the main stressors experienced in your community right now? And who would like to lead us off with that?
Can you do this one? This
know.
the one we just did. What is the other question?
The last one was what makes your community more vulnerable to
Yeah,
stressors?
oh,
Now,
okay,
what
so
are
now
those
what is it?
stressors?
Oh, I
We
thought
kind of talked about it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Melissa. And I know, a lot of these might feel a little bit repetitive, but if we don't, don't feel the need to kind of repeat everything you just said, if you would like, but just, it's good to give us sort of, like, what is the list of these stressors that you think about every day that are really specific or special to your community? They're happening right now.
We're in a housing crisis right now. We see a insurance crisis where homeowners, property owners are losing their properties, being pushed out of their properties because they are not able to obtain homeownership because they can't afford the cost of homeowners insurance.
And that's right now, or it has
That's
been happening?
right now,
Okay.
currently. I mean, it's been happening, but right now we're at an all-time peak.
And I'm assuming that's because of climate vulnerability, the home insurance? Okay, thank you.
In addition to the climate vulnerability, I think one of the things for Louisiana is we always talk about like the climate crisis. And when you talk to individual people in communities, the climate crisis is so big that people can't identify with how it impacts them directly. But when you talk about it more on an environmental injustice level, and you talk about like what's happening directly in their community, like in the other room we were in, somebody was talking about, for example, how they're getting notifications about boiled water every day. Well, I live in Southwest Louisiana, which is almost 4 hours away from here in the town called Carlos, and I get one every day as well. And just connecting that to people in New Orleans are getting this, people here are getting this. So how this, like, showing how things are connected, like from a small level, and how that contributes to the larger climate. I think people are grasping or struggling, trying to understand, like, how is what's happening in Louisiana with all of these industries impacting the larger climate. But things like that, like making that little connection, like, yeah, we're getting boil water notices and we're surrounded by industries. They're getting boil water notices. They're surrounded by industry. There is an infrastructure problem in the state. The water is contaminated. There's a water drinking crisis. Water is life. Anyway, so that, and the other thing I wanted to add is, with people getting these floods every day, because another thing he talked about was like one community has had like 7 floods. Same thing with a community that I work with. What happens is, because they've gotten those floods so many times from like just regular rainy days, like not a hurricane or a tornado, anytime there's a forecast of rain, they get scared. So for my organization, they start calling me, Miss Rochetta, can you provide us with some sandbags? I'm like, it's supposed to be like a 30% chance of rain today. I know, I just want to be safe. So they're developing PTSD and other mental issues that they don't have the health insurance or the resources to go to the doctor and be, seen. And then on top of that, with already that PTSD and that stress, they have the noise pollution from the facilities. So it's like all of that is cumulative and is impacting, like, one person, one community, one neighborhood is dealing with all of these things. So, I don't know how you want to categorize this.
Thank you, yeah. So also anticipating
Yeah, just what's gonna
disasters
happen.
from.
Especially from like May to December 1st. I mean, normally hurricane season is, June 1st through November 30th. But already starting when the spring starts, when the flooding starts, in the summer during the wildfires, and then going into the fall, when people are like, those traditional hurricanes happen between, the end of September, the beginning of November, people are really stressed out, PTSD, don't know what to do, scared to buy anything because they feel like they had to save money, or buying in abundance because they're afraid of what happens. So we see a lot for my organization, which is a mutual aid organization, people are reaching out, Ms. Rochelle, can you pay for my medicine? Can you pay for me to go to the doctor? Can you provide sandbags? Like those type of things that you would identify with like stress or PTSD or some sort of mental.
Thank you so much.
So I wanted to add that in the river parishes, there's water quality issues as well. So there's boil alerts all up and down the river, St. John, St. James, we're getting boil alerts as well. But the other piece I would say, in the river parishes is the fear of more industry coming in and boxing in communities. So, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a lot of money has been put into carbon capture sequestration. And so there are proposals for, additional projects where they want to run these pipelines throughout the community. So like on Sunday, we was in Modesto, Louisiana. And so there's 2 carbon capture pipelines proposed for that area and 2 huge ammonia plants. And so there's a fear of what will happen when these industries are built within a half a mile of my home or yards of my home. And so that's the cumulative impact, being afraid of what that means, explosions, leaks, and they all violate all of their permits, the water permits, the air permits. And so there's definitely a fear, and it's almost like a depression that's happening throughout our communities.
A depression, do you mind saying more in that?
So people feel hopeless. They feel like they don't have a voice. They don't feel like they can stop these plants. They feel like it's a done deal. They don't, like the community we went to on Sunday, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go, who to talk to stop these plants from being built in their communities. And so there's a need, to help them advocate for themselves. There's a lot of disenfranchisement happening as well.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I think the stressor is like racism in a lot of ways. And it goes back to what you were saying, like you can't even ask to get information, to get help, like where is that process for community to even, kind of what we were talking about in the room last time, like how do they even get information, how do they have a say in the decision making? And to me, that links back to, I think, environmental racism.
Also
Or just racism.
the harassment you face when you are in those situations and you try to speak out. And I think we've all, at least I know the 3 of us have been had experience where we have elected officials who are hostile towards us. Every time we walk into a council meeting or a zoning meeting, we walk into war. And really. And I will start to tremble. So my body temperature drops and I wear my eye watch and it'll give me signals like you need to slow your heart rate down. So I've been able to medically like track the impact of these meetings. And I mean, I didn't even know why I was going into the meetings and I was getting so cold. I thought it was just an air conditioning. And I realized that it was a stress, it was a fear response.
Yeah, because most of the rooms we walk in, it's a bunch of white folks. And it's like a lot of white men and, you don't know what's gonna happen.
You don't. I mean, you've been thrown out by cops from meetings, just trying to give a public comment.
It's stressful.
Yes.
I think the environmental justice is still, goes with moving people into New Orleans East and out of their original neighborhoods as well with the gentrification. I guess it's racism. Systematic, environmental.
Could you tell us a little bit more? Do you mind, meaning
Well, there's
What do you think is the driver behind that?
gentrification.
Right, like, is it
Gentrification is
because,
taking over the downtown area, so
Mhm.
it's moving people out further, which would be the New Orleans East area or the West Bank area where things are not as accessible to them. Like they can't just walk a block to the grocery
Mhm.
store, and
Mhm.
most of them don't have vehicles.
Mhm.
So all of those things add stress to their lives, and I think of the biggest stressor for me, and I think it would be citywide, would be education. Like if we could just start educating everyone on every aspect a little bit more, from the kids to the adults, the future could look better. We could reduce some of those stresses in the future.
Do you think that gentrification is related to the industrial kind of, overtaking of the communities, or do you see this as two separate but connected things?
I don't know if it's industrial.
I mean, like, is what's happening with the industrial landscape also connected to the gentrification, do you think? With placing all these industries.
New Orleans.
I feel like for us,
I was
it
about to say
is,
maybe
and
outside.
I'm gonna read this statement, cause I speak a lot. And sorry if I like talk more than anybody, like I'm a.
Please, yeah.
But this is a statement that I just read whenever I was speaking in Texas a few weeks ago. Environmentalism has a complex and often troubling history, particularly in how it has intersected with issues of race and segregation. Historically, environmentalism has been reserved in a way that mirrors the Jim Crow era, perpetuating a form of segregation that has marginalized communities of color. This systemic exclusion has manifested in various ways, leading to significant environmental injustices that disproportionately affect disadvantaged populations. So when you think about, if we go back to how communities were formed, if we go way back to slavery, and Joe talks about this a lot with the plantations being in the same place as the petrochemical facilities. But even if we look at the communities that are being most impacted by the build out of these industries, are communities that were founded by free slaves. These are Black areas, Black communities that were there first. And then the industry came, or you had low-income housing projects were built because the government were giving out these tax incentives and tax credits. And once those tax credits expired, then the gentrifiers came in, raised the price, and kicked those low-income people out who couldn't afford it and moved them further to industrial sites, polluted sites, dump sites. So yes, it's all connected. The industrial era, the industrial revolution, as these facilities were getting built in these communities and polluting the water, polluting the air, we can also trace that back to the rise in asthma, in cancer, in Black people, in women who were living closer to those facilities. But also we can track it back to what you all were talking about earlier about like what's happening with New Orleans East. In where I live in Carlis, the reason I live in Carlis is because my home was destroyed by Hurricane Laura and Delta 4 years ago. When my home was destroyed, in order for me to purchase a house, a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that looks exactly like the house I own now in Westlake where I was living before, I would have had to pay $100,000 more. The only thing that's changed about Westlake is more industry has come in. The prices went up because the people they were bringing in to work there could afford to live by the golf course on the water. The people who were there before, we can no longer live in the place we live. It pushed me to Carlis. Now I live in Carlis in the same house, and now a pipeline is coming through my community. So if I wanted to run away from the pipeline, it will push me further into the country. But where it's pushing me to, there's 3 LNG facilities already permitted to live there. So people were there first, the industry came. Even when people leave, the industry follows them on their trail of this is where the Black low income people are moving to. This is where the industry path is. This is where pipeline already is. So they keep saying that the infrastructure is already there, but it's not that the infrastructure is already there, because when you talk about things like CCS, these are new types of pipelines. These are new types of wells. So why can't you put it somewhere else? It is what we have been told is the path of least resistance. They're gonna continue to put it in our community because we have the least pushback, we have the least amount of resources, and we also can afford to move in those other areas that don't have it. So yes, they're directly connected to answer your question.
I agree, and just to kind of give more, like a little bit of a realistic example to that, and we could definitely stay on New Orleans East, but it really applies to surrounding parishes outside of the city of New Orleans. So for instance, you may have a property right now that's $200,000 in New Orleans East that's for sale. That same property, if you look at square footage wise, bedroom, bathroom, in, let's say, the Treme mid-city area is double that. Off the top, right? So $200,000 in New Orleans East. In mid-city, that property is gonna be 450, 350, 375, 400,000. So what that means is because mid-city, Tremaine, Lower Nine has been gentrified, those who were from that area, that's their heritage is there. They can no longer afford it. So now they have to go to New Orleans East, or they have to go to St. James or St. John, because in St. James or St. John, that same property that's in New Orleans East is in St. James or St. John for 200,000, but they cannot afford it in New Orleans. To take it a step further with the insurance prices, the same thing. Same house, same square footage, same design, same structure, been through the same experiences as all of the other parishes, but in New Orleans, that premium is gonna be $7, $8, $9, $10,000 a year. Oh, well, but if we go out to the river parishes, right? If we go out to Cancer Alley, we could probably get that insurance premium down to $2,500 a year. So now that's what? It's more affordable and it's all that I can afford. So now I have no choice but to go to these areas. And we don't think about it, going back to the community, going back to the access and all of those things when we are encouraging individuals to become homeowners, to get a piece of the pie, to get that white picket fence. They're not thinking about the fact that, well, if I go to St. John, St. James, or River Parish, I am going to these industrial problems that are out of my control. They're just simply saying, well, this is what I can afford. This is what I can afford, so this is where I have to go. So it is directly connected.
And I know you started out by saying a more realistic example, but what I was talking about is exactly what happened to me. Like, that's my real life story, so it wasn't making up.
I was bringing it to numbers specifically, not that it's not a realistic thing, but putting it specific to numbers, right? To help understand that the gentrification piece of it, because it's not just a one-off, scenario, but it is a systematic issue that's happening.
Yeah. And it's kind of gentrification in terms of like residential parts, but it's also like your land in this other area is wanted by industry. So they're going to take it. So there's always like, there's something that somebody wants and then it outpaces the people who are actually there. And so it's not just housing gentrification, it's also almost like industrial gentrification. You're describing it, and then they're like, your place is, it's all place-based. And so suddenly when you have something that somebody else wants that they could pay more for, you're going to get displaced. And then you're gonna get pushed to other places.
Well, we almost lost our homes the second time, and the land next to us is $45 million. And that land before was about $10 million. And who else can afford that but the industry? And now it's like, well, if they want to come, you have to move. So,
and it's not just the path of least resistance, it's the path to what we want. You're on the path to getting us closer to the river, to getting us our product out. Does that make sense? I mean, you see this in the West as well, too. I mean, they're gonna give me more for my land than I could have ever made, but they're gonna ruin it, and then and just quickly about the whole loss of community is that when you keep displacing people, you lose the cultural and the kind of the traditional knowledge of like how you even like No, you should not let your kids play in the water.
Right.
in the
Right.
water walk.
Mhm.
People are not
Mhm.
recognizing that because the kid wants to come up. I don't know.
Sorry, you guys, to cut this short.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and for sharing. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Do we know we're going now?
Yeah, you're
That's
just
a
going
really good
over
point.
to.
Thank you.
Yeah, the way they were talking about, I'm like, they just want.
And.
Yeah.
They just want the land.
Of course they do. I mean,
But it was a good question. We brought it up in the.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is interesting. Yeah, this one, they talked a lot more about housing
Yeah.
than the first one was just about, industry is a huge deal.
It's not like the same issues everywhere.
Yeah,
Politics and money and corruption.
yeah.
You talk to me. We're going, I think either we're going.
Oh, you're going back down to the main room, right? Oh, no, you're not.
Bringing her in. All of it is my dear, I guess.
You only get 3 light blues.
There's only 3 in your group?
Yes.
Oh, well, we're gonna have a deep
Somebody-
discussion. It was random. It was random.
Yeah, it was random.
We need to be together, right?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
So.
Here come the bad crew, you
Yeah.
We putting it all on the table.
We love it. I think we're expecting more or.
She said there's only 3 in the group, so.
Okay.
This is
Went to, in 2021, we went to Geneva, Switzerland and spoke before the third convention. And somebody in our group said, do y'all realize we went to an international group and went told on the United States of America? That's exactly what we went there.
Sometimes you just have to pop out on. We were in Amsterdam earlier this year,
Oh,
studying how their canals.
studying their flooding, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's interesting.
It's not New
Yeah,
Orleans.
there's the,
Mhm.
no.
They're not New Orleans. That's the disconnect that I saw when we went there.
When
how
people wanna
all
solve
levels
their
of
problem.
government, the community.
Sure, please hold on to that thought. No, don't stop. I want you, I actually want to hear this.
Hold on to
because
that thought,
That's an important, if you don't mind. I want you to dive deeper into that in just a couple of seconds.
Okay,
Yeah,
Rima?
Rima, so are we okay? Liz?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think we're ready to start.
So I'm Rima, I'm a committee member. Please give us quick intros and then we'll dive right in if you don't mind continuing.
Okay, Faye Grimsley, Xavier University of Louisiana.
Thank you.
I'm Cheryl Austin. I'm a Green Trimming Consortium, but I'm also 1/6 of the Waterwise Gulf South Collective.
Awesome.
I'm Gail LaBeouf of Inclusive Louisiana, co-founder, co-director, and environmentalist, political character assassinationist as well, okay?
That's not true. They do it to themselves.
Mhm.
I'm Liz Boyle. I'm a senior program officer at the National Academies. And I'm so excited to hear what you
Okay,
guys
what's
got
your
to say.
name?
Liz Boyle. Oh, sorry, it's covering.
Look, I'm
L-I-Z,
looking at it,
Liz.
okay. Liz Boyle, good old British name.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, my
Oh, you
maiden,
never thought about it?
no, yeah, my maiden name was Barksdale, and that's like also British, and then I moved to, anyway, I got married and changed my name to another British name, it was like, please, I'm not changing ethnicity or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So we actually do have a question we want to talk about, but if you don't mind, Cheryl, just because even if you were just telling us a good story, but I think it's very important. Do you mind continuing to share when you went to Amsterdam? And I'm assuming the idea was that you want, people were trying to coordinate on thinking about flooding and how to deal with it. Why would you say it's not Louisiana?
Well, let me just start by saying we were funded through the Health and Community Services with an NES grant.
Mhm.
And so within that grant, I'm saying HCS, but also Waterwise Gulf South. Within that grant, there was funding for us to take a trip to Amsterdam because we're documenting how to work in communities so that that can be submitted with our NAS report. So we went to Amsterdam to see how the Dutch live with water and what we can bring back to incorporate into the work that we are doing in New Orleans.
Mhm.
And my biggest takeaway was, first of all, Amsterdam is not New Orleans.
Mhm.
They are living with water, something that we are reluctant to do. Although there's a New Orleans urban water plan that is not being implemented in our opinion, because there are very simple installations that can be done that can help us live with water and help prevent flooding in neighborhoods. If the big part is if we all work in unison together, meaning that if the government on all levels, local, state, and federal government understood that it took all of us to do this work, with the engineers, with the community-based organizations, with the residents, where they would get more information, or we could provide more information into the city, into those communities that are affected by flooding, and also, of course, the schools. How do we incorporate the schools, create the curriculum on the environment and climate change and the effects that it has, and why it's so important that we all embrace this so that we can live a cleaner, better, healthier life.
Thank you.
It's not done with the government.
Yeah.
And that's, you can't do this work without the government, is what I found out, because our goal this year was to have a H&H study completed in 6 neighborhoods, only to find out, hey, $60,000 for each neighborhood is not gonna do that. That's government work, is what we actually found out. So that just reinforced what I was thinking, that there's a huge disconnect. But not just because I was thinking it, because the Dutch in Amsterdam showed us their chart on all the entities that's involved with making sure that they don't flood in that country, where the canals are built, where the streets are have permeable pavers, where there's rain gardens and trees attached to everyone's house, where gas emission, the gas emissions are not heavy because they have smaller cars. They ride bicycles.
Yeah.
You know, our city just threw the bicycles in there, and we're like, okay, not understanding what they're there for, but it's a great tool to incorporate into what you're trying to do if you want to reduce the gas emissions. But that conversation, the like you said, the link and connect all the dots are not there, and I can't, well, right now I can't figure out why, but I could see why
Yeah.
things are.
So, but actually, we do want to hear, so the formal question is, what are the main stressors experienced in your community right now? And part of that could be your thoughts on why, obviously, but we'd love to hear from you sort of, and I know you've been saying a lot of it probably in these other conversations, but if you don't mind, if you were to list for us, like the top things that come to mind when I ask you, what are the main stressors your community is experiencing right now? And then maybe you could tie it also to why
Well, I don't wanna
reason.
do all the talking,
No, I mean,
because I
definitely,
can,
yeah.
you know, I want the other ladies to talk because we're in 3 different areas. And, you know, my work is community-based work with educating residents on, climate change, the environment, and how green infrastructure and storm water management could help us reduce flooding.
So maybe Gail, if you don't mind.
Okay,
then
our
starting us off.
structure, for us, our structure for right now is pollution and the illness. The illnesses that it's causing. It's causing everything from chronic, throat illness, from, miscarriages, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and whatever cancers there is, you can find it in our neighborhood. You will find it. We don't even think about it. But you're always preparing yourself to go to the doctor next week. I go Monday. And after Monday is just a trip to my bronchial doctor. But then I go Wednesday to my chemo. And so you're always preparing yourself to go to see a doctor, and you don't even think about it. It's just the norm. And it's not just me. It's I learn about other people in the area that have, whether it's just chronic illnesses or fatal illness, that is what they're preparing themselves for. But you can't think about that, because then you're going, you know, it's not healthy. And when they ask me, are you depressed? I say, I'm normal depression. It's not that abnormal, it's just the normal. What I should have because of what I have to deal with, you know, and muddling through it. So the other thing is the housing issue, because a lot of people live in trailers and it's inadequate as far as pollution goes. The pollution is coming in on. We just had a young man diagnosed with liver cancer. They're sure it's caused by his environment where he lives at. Whether the doctor is gonna go on record again, and say it, we doubt it. But we don't have buffer zones where we live at. There are no buffers. And that's why we have that lawsuit. Won't look at me. We have a lawsuit against St. James Parish. Now, will you send this map to yourselves? It's showing you exactly where all the plants are. It's showing you exactly where all the plants are. And of the 24 plants, 22 of them is in that immediate area. So this is the stressful thing that, as I say, it's mainly illness. And you don't think about it, and they don't focus in on climate change. There's no climate change. One of the other things.
I don't know how, but we'll do it later.
Yes, okay.
I don't know how to.
One of the other things that's going on in our parish, we're about to do roundabouts. Roundabouts are for the workers that come to work on the river parishes. You have people that come to work out there all the way from New Orleans, all the way from Alexandria, all the way from Lafayette, because the elected officials have set up a system where the people in Louisiana that needs work come to the river parishes, because that's where the work is.
Do you mind, Gail, you said, a lot of important things, but do you mind? So people living in trailers, it's inadequate protection against pollution, of course.
Right.
And you said it's not just about climate change, and the kind of the worry that your home might be destroyed, and if you're in a trailer, maybe that's worse, right? But what else do you think, what is the issue of like living in trailers and mobile homes associated with? What are the main upstream reasons for that? Do you think it ties to affording housing in the first place?
Right. It's about the people. You see where the plants are.
Yeah.
The people that live in the area don't work in the plants.
Yeah.
So you're not getting the income that you could have or should have in order to take care of yourself.
You're not getting what? Sorry.
You're not getting the income, you're not
The income,
working
yes.
inside the plant.
Yes. Okay, yes.
And it's other people from other neighborhoods that come and work inside the plant. And then they're taking the money and they're going to spend the money back where they live. They're not spending the money where they work at.
It sounds like nepotism jobs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then-
That's spending it.
And then, the point about the doctors stating in their diagnosis that it is related to pollution.
Cause they see all the chemicals in the person's body.
Right.
You know, when they're there fresh for you to see, like with me, I didn't hear that when I got diagnosed, but I'm sure that there were chemicals that were prevalent in my blood and that they saw. But doctors aren't willing to say that.
Why do you think that is? I mean, other than correction.
Because where they get their funding from, really?
Right,
You
right.
know,
So if they were able to say something about it, do you think that, how would that help in terms of like insurance might pay out better? What could happen? I'm
here's
sorry
what
if
you
these are
need.
silly questions, but I wanna
Yeah.
understand your rationale, yeah.
It is so many dots that connect to each other in that if doctors could say without, reprisal,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they'll hold control of pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it wouldn't be this industry friendly thing going on with elected officials. It's so many ifs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and as I stated in one of the other sessions, I go every third Wednesday and I never see the same people getting treated. So that tells me, and I've been going for 2 years, so that tells me how many people are ill, you know, from a chronic illness to a life-threatening illness. That tells me that there are far more people that are sick between New Orleans and Baton Rouge than our elected officials are willing to admit.
And I think going to the doctor, how much does it cost
Mm-hmm.
just to get to the doctor? Access to healthcare. I know down in Plaquemines Parish, they don't even have a ambulance in that one of the little neighborhoods. They have to go across on the West Bank before if something happens to them, or come up to St. Bernard or to come up to New Orleans. And so we
But
do.
like if they have an actual emergency, the
Right,
ambulance can't get there. Like
Right, exactly. And so we're dealing with these issues
cardiac
now.
event, somebody would just die.
Right, because you got to go across on the West Bank, or you got to come to St. Bernard, or you got to come. I said, well, do you even have a nurse at the school? And they said, no, we don't have that type of program at the school. And so this, the cost of transportation, the grocery store. They have to come up to the Dollar General store just to say we can go to get something from a store. They don't have like the corner store because it's out in the rural area as well. And so we have individuals going to the doctor, these doctor's appointments, how much gas. I know individuals say, well, I didn't have the money to pay for grocery because I had to put money in my tank to go to the doctor. And so these are issues that individuals are being faced with on a regular basis. So the pollution, you have to say, what else is this pollution actually causing as far as the socioeconomic or determinants of health, the stress? It's on a regular ongoing basis when it comes to what
And
else is
the same thing
connected.
with St. James Parish. We don't have stores that are localized. You have to travel 14 miles to the east and another 8, 9, 10 miles to the west to get to a store that's a grocery store. And it's just bread, you know, your bread and butter store. It's not the fancy store.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So these are and with all those plants, with the billion-dollar industry that I just showed you on that map,
Give it back.
we should have roads paved in gold from Baton Rouge to New Orleans.
Right.
Our roads should be paved in gold.
Yeah.
So listening to you and Fig talk just bring us to why we're here in the communities that's affected.
Right.
With climate change, which are all poor black and brown communities. When you go into the suburbs, they're tree lined, there are little bayous and, you know, water streams where the water can flow. Not in all of them, but I'm just saying, we need to turn some things back. We need to turn them back so that we can live a cleaner, healthier life in our communities. And it begins with us, but we can only take it so far. If we don't have the cooperation of the people that we elect and put in office, and they're not listening, or they're ignoring us, or sending funding to organizations that do not actually help solve a problem, those things need to be addressed. And this is our last one before lunch. So let me just say this. I've been talking for 30 years on all issues. And my community went through a change where we thought we could do affordable housing, which we were kind of blocked from doing, but we are full of short-term rentals now. All the blighted properties we had that could have helped poor people have access to affordable, decent housing sat there for years. And the minute Katrina hit, and the people were leaving or did not return, or they sold their properties, they had money because they didn't think they was gonna be able to get the road home money. All of those units are now short-term rentals, the majority of them.
Who's buying them, do you think, big corporations?
Corporations, some people that have money, to the point whereas they are having people live in those houses that don't actually live there. Just so that they can generate that income, and it's being
So maybe,
ignored.
sorry, with like short-term rentals, like Airbnbs?
Airbnbs, I guess that's, yeah.
So like where people come for vacation and stay.
Yes.
Yes.
You stand in
And what's the driving force for those? Is it like the industrial jobs or tourism, you think?
It's tourism.
Yeah.
It's tourism, coming to New Orleans, being able to,
Yeah.
live outside of the hotels and having the freedom. I don't really, well, it's tourism, it's
Yeah.
tourism. And it's so strange for someone, I live a mile away from here, live on the other side of the rampart. I used to come to the French Quarters at least 2-3 times a week as a child. So, there was always tourism over here, and on the other side of the rampart that they considered a slum, demolished 10 square blocks where Armstrong Park now sits. Now everyone is coming over there and we have nothing to contain or entertain the tourists with, because they're all short-term rental. Now, a lot of the culture and things that we did as a kid or was entertained by as kids were zoned out, moved to Frenchman Street, the culture, the bands, you know. And I'm just saying, for me, I'm just gonna speak for myself, for someone that lived in the community, grew up in the community, worked in the community, played in the community, and when I say play, I mean adult play, okay? Not just kids play. To see the transition over all of those years, and to still be complaining about the same issues that it's on.
That's it.
And to have grown up now, looking back in an area where the environment and climate change was never discussed. We had no idea what you're talking about. For me to catch up in the last 10 years on how harmful, how we've been living contribute to our health, because we don't have enough green space or trees surrounding our, where we live at. You know, knowing that the drains are stopped, the pumps don't work, the pipes are broken, you know.
We got lead in the pipes.
Yeah, lead.
Yeah.
I hope you all summary do something. But I've been saying this for years. You know, we give out this information, but when does it come back where we can have the impact that we seek to actually transform or turn around the hazards of living in these communities?
Can I ask two questions? Sorry, just because I wanna make the most of the time. And Gail, sorry, I know you wanted to say something.
I had a thought, but it's gone.
I interrupted you.
And see,
It's
that's why I
probably,
said I don't-
me. It's probably me.
No, it was coinciding with what she was saying, but it's gone.
It's gonna come back, that
Mhm.
happens to me too.
When you say, so the issue with public housing, you know, the community didn't want it at first, then this happened with the short-term rentals. What do you feel like your perspective now historically is on how that issue was dealt with? Right, like, how do you talk about it now with the community? How does the community feel about it now? Because, let's just finish this.
Can you finish the thought?
You know, like, is it
We
a,
feel trapped. I live in my
Yeah.
community that I work in. We feel trapped. We don't have we don't have a sense of real community. There's no kids there, maybe 2 or 3 family with kids.
You know,
It's
affordable
almost-
housing,
yeah,
affordable housing, people,
period.
how much for rent for a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom? You're paying your money that is coming in into trying to pay rent because of the costs, you don't have affordable.
Nothing is
We
affordable.
don't have, we don't
And the
have that.
government is to blame for that too.
Yeah.
Because they created Section 8 and they gave those landlords more money than what those, the rental units actually cost. And
they're
I
not keeping
discovered
them
that
up.
after Katrina.
Right.
They were really the entity that created that, and so people who were not Section 8 landlord began to charge higher rents just to keep up. And then the government after Katrina was, you know, if you have another unit, Section 8 it, and we'll pay for it, so.
final super quick thought, because I know we have to run. You mentioned stress before, just actual, like, you know, human feeling stress. What does the word stress mean to you? How do you feel or think about, how do you live stress day to day, if you don't mind? I mean, do you?
You ignore it,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
Anxiety.
She said she's going to the doctor.
Yeah.
Her whole
Just
life
think
is,
about it.
yeah. It evolves around her trying to stay healthy. So she's ignoring what's actually going on, just knowing she have to get to the doctor. I ignored the fact that my car actually flooded. And I'm like, just steady going because I'm working in green infrastructure and stormwater management. It took the residents to tell me, well, what's wrong with you? You lost the car. It keeps flooding around here. So that prompted me to say, hey, look, wait, you're right. You're in it. So you're not paying attention, and then you want to help others. So we ignoring what's going on, but we are talking about it with the hopes that we can actually resolve what the issues are.
Right.
But to get there, we can't focus on our anxiety or what we're losing because we're steady trying to move forward to get this information out there, the concerns, so that we can help the people that we represent, that we sit at these tables at, and we, you know, try to put their thoughts and ideas on it.
What my thought was that atrocities is put in the Black and brown people community. But it's the white community that's beginning to wake up and understand that it's hurting everybody's community. That's what a recent, I went in St. Rose, right there where Shell Oil is. They fighting an ammonia plant. You had actually people that live in the neighborhood that were white come in and speak up, you want another ammonia plant. What? Are you that obtuse to what pollution you already live in? And yet I went to another community where an ammonia plant, and that's closer to me in Ascension Parish. The white people came out and spoke against the ammonia plant because they're beginning to realize that injustice for some of us amounts to injustice for all of us.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Just wanna make sure I track for that. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
In orange.
Thank you. Can you hear it now?
For y'all to take notes.
I had us on mute.
Yeah,
Okay,
and-
great.
You know, we try to summarize everything, but we try to capture. Thank you guys for joining. Liz, do you want us to get started?
Yeah, let's,
It's open mic.
let's go ahead and have, our introductions, right? You can plug in your computer first.
Yes.
Take a
thank
breath.
you. I'm not, you know, I feel like I don't have the hard job. But I wanna make sure I capture our thoughts.
I think you have one of the harder jobs because you're facilitating and taking notes.
That's impossible.
I
That's hard.
disagree. Well, she also took notes, which she wasn't supposed to do, so I feel like I'm just, just get to have really good conversations. So maybe if you guys, well, let me just start with saying, I'm Rima Haber, I'm a committee member. We'd love to do quick intros if you don't mind.
Sure, Jessica Dandridge Smith, Executive Director of the Water Collaborative Greater New Orleans, and I am from New Orleans.
Barbara Washington, co-founder and co-director of Inclusive Louisiana, St. James Parish.
Burdell Banner with the Descendants Project.
Liz Boyle with the National Academies.
Terrell with Tulip Environmental Law Clinic.
Thank you. Band, do you mind giving us our question, Liz? Cause I did write it
Yes.
down.
So it's barriers to strengthening your community's response to stressors.
Okay.
So.
I have thoughts based on what I heard before, but they should come from you.
And you guys kind of know, I think the focus in this session, is thinking more towards the future and perhaps solutions and things you might want to equip us with as information to take back, right? So the first question is, what do you think are barriers to strengthening your community's response to stressors?
I would think getting the community itself more involved. That's where we find we have a lack of input from the entire community. For some reason, the council and the planning commission and industry has a stronghold on the community. And so a lot of community residents seems to be intimidated to come forward to say anything.
So I think a barrier that I experienced was just the normalization of what we've seen for 50 years. We had, I forget who she is, but an EPA visitor came over and we were talking about this aluminum plant. And she said, well, you need to inform us if you see anything, if anything changes or anything, if you see anything. Or whatever it is, and I'm saying, well, what does that mean? Do you mean more of the dust flies over the river, or more of it goes into the water, or what? Oh, no, you need to report that. So, well, that's been happening for 50 years. If you don't know that that's happening, then, so I've normalized it, right? So, so I realized that this is the world that we grew up in, and it's hard to, maybe a barrier is for us to see beyond that and see it's not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be clean air. It can be clean air, and just letting that be part of our vision.
Yeah, I was gonna, I think to that point, I think a lot of what I run into is a lot of trauma, which makes people apathetic and kind of normalizing the situation. So when I'm out in community having conversation, I have the first barrier to entry is getting past whatever historical traumas that they have around climate, around government, around community, systemic racism, you name it. People in Louisiana have been beat down in every way. So that is hard to overcome for them to become politically active. And then I think the other one, I think is a stressor. I think it's in every category, but is education, because I spend a lot of time, a lot of energy that I don't, like I lived in New York, right? And I spend more energy here educating people about basic stuff than I do in other places. And then also the irony is that people are standing in that miseducation or disinformation. So some like in other places, and I think this is a national problem, but I think in Louisiana, people be like, well, I've never heard that before, so it's wrong. And I'm like, well, maybe you've heard the wrong thing for the last 75 years. And they still will be like, well, just because I've never heard of it, it's not true. Or because it doesn't fit my narrative. And that is a huge barrier that I run into consistently.
I would build on that and say, like, in addition to education, like, information about opportunities to influence decision-making. So, like, I deal a lot with environmental permitting, so public notices for permits. For me, I live in New Orleans in a historic district, so I get a mailer, I get a postcard if somebody wants to build too close to the property line. But a petrochemical facility can build across the river without any notice, right? So in Louisiana, our state DEQ doesn't issue public notices for what are called minor source facilities, which are below an arbitrary threshold. So there's a huge incentive for companies to say, yeah, this will be a minor source, and then later expand and just get their foot in the door. I was at a public hearing in September, and people there, community members, were really alarmed by the fact that they had just found out about that project the same day as the public hearing. Because other community members are spending time knocking on doors. And so, you know, community members end up doing the DEQ's work of creating an informed community.
What is considered a minor source, if you don't mind, just briefly in terms of the technicalities of it?
Sure. So for what are called criteria pollutants, if it emits more than 100 tons per year, it's a major source. Less than 100 tons, a minor source. So you could say
air pollutants.
Yeah, so like particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides. So, you know, you could say, oh, my facility is going to emit 99 tons per year. And that's a whole different set of, you know, public notice, pollution controls, emissions reporting. There's a lot of facilities that don't even report their emissions to EPA. And so they don't get incorporated into all of these screening tools that we use, like EJ screen, and that pollution is just unaccounted for.
More barriers.
I think on the water side, the two areas that come to mind is water usage laws, or the lack thereof in Louisiana. They're zero. So there's no usage laws, and I can't hold anyone accountable for that. So
you mean for industry or like municipal, or all of the above?
All the above. There's just no laws. So you can use as much water in Louisiana as you want without repercussion. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to protect it. You don't have any responsibility to it. And so it's hard for us to hold people accountable. And similarly, it's hard for EPA to hold people accountable because they also don't have laws on usage. And then the Mississippi River as a whole is a problem because Louisiana gets everybody's junk, and no one wants to be held accountable for what they're bringing downriver. I sit in a lot of Mississippi River coalition this, coalition that, and all the upriver states are just, well, we did our best, but your best is nothing. You didn't do anything. And ironically, you know, as much as people like to criticize Louisiana spends a lot of money trying to mitigate pollution from the Mississippi River more than any other state because we're receiving everybody else's trash, everybody's pollutants, everybody's runoff. And so a barrier, we could focus our energy on other areas if we weren't always tackling pollutants on the Mississippi River. But until Iowa, Minnesota, you know, Tennessee, et cetera, and other estuaries that go in pretty much the whole country until they take responsibility. We're gonna spend more money, more energy, more resources on the dead zone, on coastal protection, restoration, sea level rise, et cetera. And other states are continually extracting from that.
I have a really on point example. I have a friend who's a conservation biologist and she works in Chesapeake Bay on water quality issues. And so her big success in improving water quality there was convincing chicken farmers in Virginia to drive to the Mississippi River watershed to dump their waste there so that it would go into the Mississippi River basin and not the Chesapeake Bay. You know, and they
Someone else.
justify it as like, oh, well, it's a bigger watershed, whatever, but it's, you know, it's a bigger watershed with vastly more pollution. And, you
Right.
know, and this is like an environmentalist solution.
Yeah, right, yeah, okay. Try not to like seethe at that, but yeah.
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 So, yeah,
Yeah.
a dumping ground.
Yeah, where everybody's dumping from.
I think, a barrier that I see for us is that we might be in a 7-district, in St. John Parish. And so District 1 is so there's 6 on that side of the river, and then there's 1 on our side, which is like the least populated, we get the least attention, the last penny of the last dollar. So, well, maybe we can throw it over the river and they will do something with it. So until we get a better voice, I think comes back to getting a better voice in the parish council, we will continue to live the lives that we live now. The council person we had before, who is my cousin, did a horrible job of representing us and our interests. The lady that we have right now seems she just showed up as an adversary, not go, all right, you're not my people, let's talk. It was more of a, now I gotta deal with you kind of attitude. And so we do need to fix that, that we do elect the people who really represent us and who show that will represent our best interest rather than, I don't know, it's hard for me to figure out how do we keep electing the people for us who do a horrible job.
It's not biased.
How do we fix that?
One of the barriers that I see has to do with the sugarcane. A lot of there's so much sugarcane east and west bank, and the sugarcane farmers mostly got their land from the enslaved. That's been a generational pass on. And so as industry came in, then the sugarcane farmers sold most of the land to industry. And so what they did is they could still farm the land, even if industry owns it, they still can lease some of the land and do their sugarcane farming on. So that's a barrier there that we see, because even our parish president owns sugarcane. And sugarcane, we tried to do a moratorium on a moratorium on more industry coming in. Instead, our council did a moratorium on a solar farm that was coming in. So that's a barrier.
Yeah, I talked to somebody from Entergy who said that there were 3 solar projects slated for St. James Parish.
Right.
And because St. James is an ideal spot, it's like centrally located between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, has flat topography, and I think like where it is relative to the grid is important. And so, yeah, all 3 of those projects are out the window because of the moratorium on solar development. Because and there was a quote in the paper to the effect of the parish president wants to preserve the agricultural character of the parish. Meanwhile, permitted for most of plastics.
Wait, come on.
Exactly, yeah.
Gosh.
So just the hypocrisy.
Right. And I think in ag education, right? Like, do they even understand how a solar farm works? I don't even know if they understand a quarter of what that means for economic value, jobs, they just understand, they don't get it.
Yeah.
This whole idea of drill, baby, drill is, basically early 1900s, and we're still operating like that as everything that I think Louisiana does is operating as a barrier. It's like early 1900s. We won't let go of the 20s. Yeah. To that point, I was gonna say too, the tax in New Orleans specifically, we don't keep any of our taxes. Our tourism taxes, any of the taxes, when you think of the Super Bowl, you think of Mardi Gras, any events, we literally do not keep those taxes. And that was based in 1930s. I forgot the specific law, but basically the scenario is we're a suckling pig to the state. So all the money that people think we're getting when they say, oh, the Super Bowl brought in $70 million or $1 billion, we don't receive any of that money. It goes back up to the state to then be redistributed to other smaller parishes, mostly central and north Louisiana. Not even the river parishes get it. It's like the white northern parishes get that money, which keeps New Orleans poor. And so we can't, when you think about our degrading infrastructure, you think about our degrading school system, our degrading healthcare system, poverty, wages, it's all because the money, we don't keep any of that money. So we're basically providing low cost services, basically service industry jobs, bartenders, restaurateurs, obviously cleaning folks, all those jobs are low wage jobs that we provide to tourists. And then that money is redistributed to white central Louisiana communities. And that keeps New Orleans, and I frankly, the greater New Orleans area poor.
And then also like industry, some of it has been grandfathered in, and so they don't pay their fair share of ITAP.
Oh, yeah. And that's the nonprofits here and businesses don't pay any taxes on top of that.
So yeah, it's called, like ITEP is the Industrial Tax Exemption Program, which is an industry specific. It's for manufacturing industries, and it's a 80% tax write-off for 20 years, 10 years.
I think it's
10 years.
10.
Yeah.
Like you get 5 and then you can do one renewal for another 5. I think.
And who gets those?
Any manufacturing company can apply for it. And I know of at least one instance where just a petrochemical storage facility applied for it and got it. They weren't manufacturing anything. So there's not a lot of oversight, and it's just crazy because it's, this culture of like, well, you should just be grateful for the little 20% that we are bringing,
Now the parish, they tried to go after Nucor, but that was already grandfathered in, so they couldn't.
And the ITAP, is that for new industry coming in, or like it also a lot of the older ones?
A lot of existing industry, and that's the crazy thing is that an existing facility can upgrade some equipment and get this massive tax write-off for it. And ostensibly, the point of the tax incentive is to encourage industry to develop in Louisiana and not go to Texas, because we're always competing with Texas. But if you have a refinery, are you really gonna say, okay, well, instead of upgrading our equipment, we're gonna move to Texas? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And there's also the Louisiana state, the Louisiana legislative auditor did a great report on ITEP and other types of, there's also like an easy jobs tax program. And they found instances where petrochemical companies were laying off employees so that they could rehire the same individuals to get the tax credits. So it really and there's been several recent reports just showing that program is a net economic loss to the state.
And they're not tackling that in the tax session.
I doubt it.
Yeah. They're trying to take away all the tax credits. There's a whole tax session happening at the legislature right now as we speak. And they're trying to take away all the tax credits that everyday lay people use. So for like rebuilding your home, they have like tax credits for certain industries like movie, film, music. They're trying to like basically gut those tax credits, but then ITEP I haven't heard it be mentioned at all, in this tax session. Or, increasing wages. Louisiana still, our minimum wage is still $7.25. Yeah.
Another barrier is industry self-monitoring themselves, meaning that they don't, they have the will to report when they have an incident or something like that. And then LDEQ, which is the Louisiana Department of Environmental Equality, will only tax them. So they're just being fined to pollute more. That's what they do.
And there's another good Louisiana legislative auditor report on LDEQ's enforcement, finding that it takes, I think it was like on average 7 years between a reported violation, right? So industry is saying, hey, DEQ, we violated our permit. And when DEQ reaches a settlement over it. And it's, the fines are not sufficient to deter future violations.
And it's sort of the easy way out because it's less costly for the industry to report their violation and pay a fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Nucor by Barbara is a really compelling example of that. They've violated their permit, I think, every year since they were built in 2014.
Wow.
And so the latest thing is that DEQ is just increasing their permitted emissions, right? So we built this facility. We couldn't engineer it to do what we thought. It's emitting more pollution than we thought. After years of violating, we'll just raise our limit. So now we're not violating.
But can the industry get DEQ to raise their limits or
They
DEQ is
already
agreeing?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same side on the thing on the water side too.
Yeah.
It's the same side, it's all the whole state of water too.
Oh.
They do the same thing. Yeah.
We're supposed to move soon.
Oh, yeah.
No. And now, I was like in 1 minute and then the clock turned.
Can I just quickly
Yeah.
say, I think something that should just be captured is also like the deference that is given to DEQ by the EPA and by courts. So, there's just like for judges, if you're in court challenging a permit, if the judge doesn't understand the technical bits, he or she is gonna defer to the agency.
Yeah.
And DEQ is doing like all kinds of stuff that is not science-based and no scientists, outside Louisiana are really engaged with this, or few are. So just, I don't know, I could go on and on about data misuse in environmental permitting in Louisiana.
Yep.
It's such an issue.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Super
We can
interesting.
go on and on.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
You have a tough job.
Sorry, I know we're exhausting you.
Environmental.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, really important.
Well, I like to think about Olivia Benson and how any important job is demoralizing, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys
See
are
you
moving
soon.
now to C. Yeah.
Rima?
Rima.
Rima.
Sorry, it's getting mushed. Maybe we start with quick intros, if you don't mind. Rima, I'm a committee member.
Ashley Gagnard from Donaldsonville, Louisiana, founder of Rural Roots, Louisiana.
Barbara Major, anti-racist community organizer and trainer, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Courtney Harris, Rural Roots, Louisiana. Cindy Robertson. Can somebody open that for me? Mike is 6-8 Missions, Sulphur, Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana.
And I'm Liz Boyle,
Thank you.
National Academies.
Nice to meet everyone. Well, meet you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, you've been hanging out all day.
Yeah.
If you didn't know each other before, you do now.
We do.
So I know we've been talking a lot about it today, and hopefully you still have some energy to share with us. And you're right, these are very hard to open.
Not just using.
But we'd love to
got it.
hear about barriers to strengthening your community's response to stressors. What are the things that are keeping you or the community? What are the roadblocks, the barriers?
We're not trusted to handle our own funds. Yep.
Hang on, yeah, sorry, keep going, but I mean, I need to type.
Government. I mean, the Louisiana state government. Even like the EPA, we've got a Region 6 liaison, and every time I send something to them, they say, like the Louisiana Emergency Preparedness Committee, part of Sarah.
Sorry.
You're supposed to do this. And there's a guidebook that said, there's rules, here's how you do it. And yet the EPA says, we don't have any authority to enforce it. What the?
I'll send it to cousin preacher.
Cousin preacher, yep, that's it.
But so, and yeah, please keep going, but so when you say we're not trusted to handle our own funds, what does that mean?
The organizers, the on the ground organizers are not trusted with funds. We usually have to go through a bigger, richer organization that don't face these problems and get passed through grants. Like, we're still being treated like we're incapable of handling our own funds for our own community.
And is that by grant makers
You
or by
said
the
it
government?
better. Both.
Oh, you just said it very well.
Both.
I thought you well already.
Yeah. They want us to organize, but they won't support us to
Right.
organize.
That part.
And it's like, it's because we're poor that we don't know how to handle money. Y'all, poor folk know how to handle money much, much better than anybody else does. We make,
You got it.
massive, we know how to budget.
I think it's also, you want to see the intersectionality of racism and sexism. Cause when you start looking at nonprofits, you looking at women, we're looking at women of color.
Mm-hmm.
And even these foundations sitting up there with their women president, women CEOs, they don't trust women either. So their internalized bullshit comes into play when it comes to funding and believing in our ability. Biggest barrier for me is that every system in this country is racist, created so, originally, structured intentionally and legally to serve basically people called white only. That's and so these systems are automatically a barrier. We keep trying to tweak them, but they weren't ever created to serve everybody. Not poor people, not people of color, not folk who are seen as different, whether it's LGBTQ plus, these systems cannot produce what they were not created to produce.
They were created for white landowner men.
And let me tell you, and this ain't the place to get into it, but white landowning men have been protected by white women inheriting that shit. So I say white people.
Yeah.
I don't got no problem saying that. Well, let's just put it out there. But the barriers, every system is a barrier. We think we're looking at one, every one of them. When I look around this country, and a colleague to me said, I can find a hood everywhere.
Everywhere.
A white hood, a brown hood, a black hood. You know what he told me? He said, Barbara, it's like a franchise. and you're damn skippy. And somebody gonna tell me, well, not in Utah. I saw a brother sweeping the floor in the airport in Utah. I said, brother, y'all got a hood? He got a, yeah, you wanna go see it?
It's
Like,
everywhere.
I just wanted to know. But it's so orchestrated and we don't see it. And I'm like, why do you have a franchise?
We do see it, and that's why they bury his history. That's why they put layers and layers on top of your history. So you can stop talking about it, so you can stop embracing it, and so you can pussyfoot around and play the game, and you gotta talk differently to some people, and you gotta kiss a little tail here. The problem comes when you say, I want help in my community, I'm not here to kiss ass to get it, but this is what we need. And then it'll be somebody that looks just like you that's gonna fight you even harder. So rather you know, even what I'm telling y'all, and I don't know if y'all see it as much as I am, I'm starting to have a problem with just seeing so many organizers fight. So I think that's one thing, that's a barrier. I don't know if it's education that needs to come into people that wanna say they organizers. We gotta start from first educating organizers how to stand together. Because if you fall for the trick of letting them divide us, we look like a laughing stock in public. So we have to work together and educate ourselves. How do you stand together? How do you turn the deaf ear to the enemy and say, hey, that's my sister. She's fighting for the same thing I'm fighting for. Let me get back with you. Let's table this item until I call Cindy or call Barbara and say, hey, this is what they're saying. But so many times I've been at so many meetings, and being one of the younger ones of the groups, even with male organizers, I went to one, and this was a woman convention, and somebody invited a guy, and I'll tell you, he got on the stand and he bashed women, they keep giving all this credit to women organizers, and I stood up and asked, who invited him? Why he's a guest speaker?
Keep asking the question.
So we have to actually not be afraid to say what we need to say. We need, when we're sitting at the table for you guys who's bringing this back to people who we don't have access to, just be frank with them. They pissed off because this strategic plan y'all been having for years is kicking them in their tail, is in their face, and no matter how much we come, how much we talk, what would actually help, like at least stand firm and say, we took their time. So y'all come up with a solution. We want to know, like she said, we want to be able to hold this same meeting next year and say, hey, this is what got accomplished from this meeting. They heard us. They're willing to do this. Are they gonna do that? You guys show up at the next meeting that they're having. Like just getting our information, and we don't get feedback on where our voices even went. Like how they even felt from hearing our voices. We need some feedback to know, is it productive to even keep doing this much of it? Or should I just stay in my community and feed my people and give help to kids that can't have access to books? Like I'm on several boards in my community, and that's to me is part of the fight. It's not just showing up to meetings like this, it's showing up to board meetings in the community, fighting for my library. And Courtney had a chance to visit it. Like we now have a whole part of that library that's dedicated to African American history. And now generations are learning about the 1811 slave revolt that I didn't have a chance to study about when I was in school. So I have a impact that I can bring to my community by feeling free to talk, feeling free to say, okay, this library you built is not for the community that it's in. It needs to be catered to a lot of things have to be catered to our communities, and it's not. Don't put me what's the new thing? Everybody's getting a recreation center for the old retired people to go work out.
Watch out.
Well, hey. But they're not using that, right? They build those community centers for the elderly people, but you don't ask the people what their needs
what
are.
they
So
want.
you have stuff put in your community that really you're not gonna need. To me, that's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Bring what we need. Bring the education we need. Bring some green job education that we need. There are jobs with the government I worked on that a young man can get out of high school, go take a test to be certified and permit and make almost 6 figures. They don't even advertise that type of work. They just push plank work. There gotta be more education to tell people there's better jobs that you can get. And they hold those jobs for their nephew that's coming out of school. Or I'm gonna stay here and I can't walk and see good, but my son needs this, so I'm gonna hold that position for them. And they see them do that and nothing get done about it.
And that's
is
No,
a
it's real.
major
It's real.
barrier in our community. And I'm quite sure you guys didn't expect to come here and hear like so many stories in regards to race and
Yes, they do.
and
It goes-
I
misogyny.
expected that.
Okay, well, it is us being from the South, it is a major
Yeah.
issue here, and a lot of
I
our
know.
problems, I would say 95% of our problems all stem from that, all of the barriers that we face in our communities
Right.
basically stem from that
Right.
because we are seen as second class.
And I have to add to the thing about white women. Okay, when you get all this celebration about women getting the right to vote, I don't celebrate that because black women did not get the right to vote when white women did. So I don't even deal with
And then when
that.
they did, they had to pay for it. It didn't come that easy. It's like, one of the things, Ashley, I'm hearing from you too, lack of accountability, and see, this goes both ways. Because, I don't think organizers, younger organizers are trained to know that they have to be accountable to a community.
Yeah.
They can speak on behalf, work on behalf of the community. And you also have the responsibility to build that community's capacity to hold you accountable. And that's tough, because they don't know how to hold you accountable. They only know how to beat you down, right? I know.
Tell me.
Been there, baby, been there. And the fact that these systems, they're never accountable to us. But we're held accountable to them. Every one of them. And so it's what you all have said, one is we don't often have the privilege to just look at one issue. Even though you work on that issue independently, whether it's environment, whatever, because people have specificity. But we gotta figure out how we bring these different issues together.
How'd you do that?
Huh?
How'd you do that?
I'm gonna tell you, I have my sinuses, I'm really suffering. One is helping folk across all these different lines understand what divides us most in this country. And people think it's economics, but it's race.
Yeah.
Because race is a determinant of your economic class in this nation, a big determinant. So helping people understand, helping my white siblings understand, we talk about race, it ain't that we hate you, blah, 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 because race done played you too like a cheap ass fiddle.
Yeah.
Got you believing that, first of all, race is real. That's the first thing. When people, you know what I'm saying? It ain't real. And then helping them understand how they've been stripped of their own culture. When you Irish American, like your mom and them, like, yeah, now you white, what that's about. But people don't understand it. And they go like, oh shit, you know? And helping us understand as people of color, how we've internalized stuff, even we, people of color, like we all get along. No, the hell we don't. Because we've been pitted against each other
From day one,
from day one. And because we don't know each other's history. But it ain't just like I say, African American. This country, I used to think they ain't fucking historical. I mean, just like we don't want nothing. Because even if white people knew the real heroes and sheroes, I probably know more white sheroes and heroes than white people know in this nation. Because I've had to look up my own. And I had to see who my own was with. And it wasn't just black folk, right? Brown folk, indigenous people. Right. So one is us understanding we can't build this collective without going through, you know, like you said, we gotta go through a little hurt, because truth sometimes hurts, but not beat up on people. Then we get to the other side, we start building across these lines. You know, when folk understand, I ain't trying to take nothing from you, I don't see myself better than you. But we want to put everybody there. Now here, y'all go there, y'all been hating each other for 4 fucking years. Now here, y'all just go get along and change the environment. That's dumb shit. That is dumb to me. So we gotta have, I think, more facilitated conversations to help us know why we're separated.
How do we fight? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do we fight each
We're not
other?
gonna, let's just stop fighting. Don't like that.
I went to Prairie View A&M for my undergraduate in social work, okay? And I was
That's why I
also,
like you, I'm a social worker. Damn it,
I was also embedded in a Black community in Texas. So it's like for 10 years, well, no, 4 years, 2 years, 10 years I was in that community. 3 years I was at Prairie View, and it was like being a minority, and I could, I stepped out of it after a couple of years. You can't step out of yours.
You can't.
But I learned a lot. And one of the things is like, you're right, there's a whole lot of division in the Black community.
Hell yeah.
And
it ain't, cause it ain't just divided, I mean, black, white.
No.
When we look at how racism is structured in this country, you got these different tiers, you know what I'm saying? It's like, now, white is always on top, black is in the D. Everybody else trying to figure out getting in where the hell they can fit in. Till they become the flavor of the day. You know what I'm saying? Then their heads get kicked. Oh, now you know what I'm talking about. But that's how I go. But the bottom line is, we can build, and I've seen it. I don't care if I'm working up in New York. I don't care. I've seen us come together. Not that it's easy,
but it's
or there's no struggle. But what we've learned to do is create tables where we can have the conversation. I ain't talking about disagree bullshit. I might disagree with you. You like your chicken fried and I like mine baked. But fuck that. You disagree with me because I think that folk who maybe, like LGBTQ or folk, they're not fully human. That's a whole, no, I can't go down that road with you.
You can't do that.
But when you understand how we've all been set up, it's easier to call on our stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? My black stuff, your white stuff, it's easier for me and Cindy. And Cindy said, Barbara, what you said, it hurt my feelings. Now that I walk away, why did I say it? Or vice versa, Barbara, what you said. Cindy, what I say, blah, blah, blah. Because then, I'm not trying to hurt you.
Yep.
We have forgotten that change is rooted in relationships.
Yeah.
That we don't build relationships no more. We build programs and projects.
Yes.
And you build separation.
That was deep. I want to quote
That is
that.
so deep.
We don't. And that's kind of how they fund us in our community. They don't fund us
to build relationships.
They don't fund us to build relationships. They fund us to build.
Here's what I wrote down, is that she said, I think a lot about relationships, because that's a lot of what we do in my work in the academies. And you said change is rooted in relationships, and I fully believe in that. And then you also said, we don't build relationships anymore, we build programs and projects.
Damn, I'm deep.
You are. That is like, I'm gonna meditate. I should not be talking so much, I'm not supposed to, but I'm gonna meditate on that.
This is yours.
That is
And make
just
sure you put Barbara Major.
Barbara Major.
That is
Because the thing is that the work that I did that was important was the 4 years I spent on the ground in the community before I ever got any funding. That's what allowed me to do what I'm able to do now. So it's
Girl, get you another job, because when they don't give you money, I just go to work and I do what my heart says to do. My grandmother used to always say, if you pray to God and you do right by people, you put one foot forward, God will do the rest.
I believe in that, because that's how
I cannot depend on a welfare system to bail my community out, because I think that would got us in the position we're in. So to stand up to industries, trying to find a decent grocery store in our community, trying to make these people understand that these kids are not retarded kids that have problem mental issues. They are causing a issue with the chemical imbalance that they forcing on them. You surrounding them by noise daily. I do bike rides to show this, and when people come from out of the state and they just on the smell, you start hearing, I have a headache. Well, damn it, I can't feel that. I've been suffering with my migraines since I was in the 5th grade. Would get them so bad I would pass out. And my mom would think I wanted to miss school until I started passing out. So you got to give up the food you like to eat and everything, because you're working really hard to save yourself. You get diagnosed with cancer and they say, change your diet. I don't have nothing in my community to get.
Yeah,
So who am I? I don't have a runner. I don't have money where I could send somebody to Baton Rouge to pick me up some fresh fruit and vegetables. So the communities that suffer, it is intended for you to keep suffering because somebody is benefiting off of your community suffering. You're the sacrificial lamb for
Every
somebody
time.
to build money.
You got
And-
1 more minute.
Can I just, in that 1 minute, and I'm wondering what you said, can we talk, you're already talking about it, but you said your most effective work that you did was without funding, and they seem to be using funding to pit people against each other.
Exactly.
yes.
How is funding now a barrier versus, like, how could it not be a barrier?
Can I?
Go for it, Bob.
Please.
When I look at the tax code, the 501c3,
Mhm.
it started in 1954. What else was going on in 1954?
Plans.
Brown versus Board.
Yeah,
See, the civil rights movement was being funded, but there was no tax code to talk about how that funding was coming down the pipe. When you get that 501c3, you get limitations on how much you can use for advocacy and, political
Yeah, you can't.
education and
You
all
gotta
that, right?
have a 501c4.
Think about the fact, the other thing for me is, so when I look at funding now, you are funded according to what the foundations and the funders have deemed should be your priority in your community. They manipulated the movement since they fucking existed. The other thing is, for me, you bring all this, and I saw it as a response to the civil rights movement. You look at it, because when all those, not that I'm knocking, I think some 501c3s have done wonderful. You know what I'm saying? I know people have to be fed, but the bottom line for me is.
This meeting is organized by one. Anyway.
I'm thinking, I'm going like, but you want me to, you give me a 501c3 and you tell me feed people, which I want to do because people are hungry and should be fed. But you don't want me to build the people's capacity. I keep asking the fucking question why I'm hungry in the first goddamn place.
Yep.
See that part. So, and I'm not saying people do this intentionally, I think it's some of the intentionality. The other thing for me, I start thinking, I live in a capitalist society. Why the fuck all you want to bring is not-for-profit into my community?
Right.
Not for, when it should be about profit, right?
Where they gonna get the money
Even
to
though I know
support your profit?
capitalism ain't gonna,
Yeah, it's
ain't gonna save me, I get all that. But the bottom line is, when I look at funding, there's no funding for community organizing. Funding only for services and
And
programs.
can I get one thing out?
Please.
I have a problem with funding. They want me, because I'm an environmental, I'm an EJ group. I'm supposed to jump on the bandwagon and do what everybody else is doing. That is not when I started this, my whole aspect was preservation. How do I preserve what we have?
Yeah.
How do I remain here on this land? How do I preserve that? So when I tell funders, CF is here. I know damn well I can march around there like David himself.
Jericho March. Jericho March.
That's right.
But I do know what's important for me is to preserve what we have. Keep my elderlies mobile and in their homes. All those people, they put no taxes on to cut their grass. My organization does that, so they got to
That's
support.
why new states.
Like this, every time it get good, we got. No, in order to get funded, I have to do what they think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to preserve my community. Like, I'm fighting on the ground to keep us here. I know, I can't close the down. They've been there since 1955. We can make it and make it EPA regulate them, but I'm not going to so much, so.
That's an ugly truth.
Yeah.
We ain't never had nothing, we finally got one on the end.
Welcome, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
We agreed in the earlier meeting that these are very hard to open, so unless you try hard. Yeah, welcome, please have a seat. Hi. I'm Rima, I'm one of the committee members, and thank you guys so much for bearing with us all day, because I know it gets exhausting to keep telling us things we've been telling everyone for decades, So we do appreciate it. Liz, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, so if you don't mind, just a round of intros.
Need.
No.
Scott, are you gonna introduce Angela? We were joking in the last one about how at this point we should just be introducing each other.
Scott, it gets even better. So maybe, Scott, I'll let you go first.
Dr. Angela, my fellow student in the Green Infrastructure Certification Program back in the day, and currently you are employed at Tulane at the Cecilia Scott Weatherhead School of Public Health.
I'm the executive director of Healthy Community Services.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Adjunct
professor.
Visiting adjunct.
Yeah.
Okay,
See why I was so tongue tied.
this is Dee Dee Green. She is on the board of the Holly Grove Neighbors Association and
Program director for Piece by Piece New Orleans.
thank you. Very active in the Holly Grove neighborhood, as it happens.
And so this is Joe Johnson. Yes. And he's the new grants manager for the bucket area.
Yeah.
That's, go ahead. That's Jane. I forget Jane's last name, but Jane graduated high school 20 years ago.
You remember.
Pat hot sausage, because her last name is Pat. So
Yeah,
Pat-
exactly. I'm with the Center for International Environmental Law. I'm
Okay,
based here out in New
very
Orleans.
cool. Thank you.
And-
And did we miss anyone? Yes, who's gonna introduce Scott?
Joe.
Okay, so Scott, your last name's Eustace. I was gonna say sister.
Wait, say that again?
Scott Eustace,
Eustace.
excuse
Is that a
me.
Greek last name?
That's him.
It's Norman English,
Okay.
Oh.
and was the Secretary of War for Monroe.
Wow.
So we came over and landed in Massachusetts and then eventually made our way down here. Lots of military, US Army people. Yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead.
So Scott, honestly, I don't remember your official title. However,
Fine.
I know that Scott focuses on Southeast Louisiana in his work focusing on wetland protection and also looking at ways in which some of our governmental entities, EPA, Army Corps, can
That's okay, to be honest.
That's it.
Yeah, you got it.
I
You
lived
nailed
my
it.
whole life
That's
in
already
the
like,
EPA
yeah.
Army Corps database.
Yeah.
Go good.
Correct.
I will.
Great.
Oh, since we're doing this, this is National Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
This is Rima. Rima is
Who's
at
Rima?
USC
That's fine.
and
That's it.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
who's
she's a
the-
committee member.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, I
I'm
am.
sorry. Zen? Did I say your name right? Now we're calling on you. You're
Sorry.
Yes.
Jen, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm sorry because we were told we can't figure out a lot of Zoom coordination, so you've been patiently sitting there.
And
while
I
we
should have told
talk,
you,
and
like,
sorry.
I should have told you earlier. Like if you
I fully enjoy the process. Thank you for taking the whole thing about moderating the session. Thank you. Great meeting everyone.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Okay, so